from Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theatres. Every day, people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a non-profit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers, and the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
Thank you, thank you. Hello. Hi everybody, welcome. How's everybody? That was good and enthusiastic. Great, let's try it again. How's everybody? Excellent, great. Thanks for coming to, of course, you see it all, the TEDx conference today. And we've got 8 speakers, ladies and gentlemen, which is the good news. Each speaker is going to talk for 4.5 hours about statistics and statistical analysis of statistics. So, great. One excited person, yes. One PhD in statistics right here. Come on in, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So first question is, how many students do we have here? All females by the sound of it. How many male students? Make some noise. Oh, good, and also sober and awake. Excellent, that's good. Welcome. Hey, listen, this has been put together by a lot of people. I'm just going to mention them as I first come out. A lot of people put this together. Big shout out for the Young Erasmus Academy. Where are you guys? Oh, they're backstage working. Okay, cool. They put this together with the Rotterdam, the Erasmus University. It's going to be a great day. We've got, like I said, lots of speakers. A few questions. And the speakers are we're all backstage asking, how many people here are from the Netherlands? That was a delayed answer for some reason, wasn't it? What are you checking? Is it okay to be from Holland? I don't know. Let's try that again. If you were allowed to come from Holland and it was okay and cool, how many people are actually from Holland? Okay, a few hands went up. That wasn't the question. I didn't ask how you voted in the last elections. Yeah, it's good. Yes, excellent. Cool, well, welcome. And non-Dutch people, make some noise. I think everybody's just cheering at anything I say, basically. Great, well, welcome. It's a great afternoon this afternoon. And a little bit about myself, of course. My name's Bob, which in Dutch means I get to drive you all home this evening. That's the statistics guy. Yeah, woo, yeah, excellent. I'm from New Zealand, ladies and gentlemen. You are just clapping at anything now, seriously. He made it from New Zealand. Well done, excellent. Good, also, yeah, excellent. You know the name of the fruits from our country. Good, that's... I bring up somebody from Ecuador, you go, banana! Excellent, great. So welcome, yes, I am from New Zealand, a Kiwi, therefore. And what's quite nice, and it's not to be rude to you Dutch people, but I've noticed every time Dutch people introduce me to their friends, they make an emphasis about the fact that I'm all the way from New Zealand. You know that? Dutch people, you must meet my friend Bob, he's all the way from New Zealand. Yeah, Marika, come and meet Bob, he's all the way from New Zealand. And I think, well, of course I'm all the way. If I was halfway, I'd be in Kuala Lumpur. No, but no, I'm here in your lovely country. I'm a McLaren as well, that's my last name, Bob McLaren. McLaren is a Formula 1 team. And little did I know that in this country, the future world champion Formula 1 driver lives. Holland has a Formula 1 racing champion, a guy called Max Verstappen. He's brilliant. He's a little guy from Limburg, apparently, which is a little province on the southern part of Holland, and he's the most aggressive driver the world has ever seen. This little Dutch guy drives around the field, slides into the corner, goes past the Germans like this, goes past the French like that, slides in, and the British camera crew turns up and goes, Max Verstappen, what's the secret of your success? Ja, gewoon Jasjeva. Which is what they sound like in Limburg. Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do to get plenty of energy into this room, I'm going to ask you, when I bring on the first speaker, I mean, what sort of applause would you give him? Nothing at all. Oh, just one person at the start. One of the other speakers. I'll help him out, seriously. We can do better than that, students. Applause, it doesn't cost anything. That's a bonus. It's free. Yes, it is. When I bring on the first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, it needs lots of love and energy and enthusiasm. So, well, imagine if you came on now. No, let me give you a test. Imagine if somebody famous came into the room right now. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if we're sitting here and Theresa May, the Prime Minister of Britain, would walk into the room. What sort of... Okay, it's nice to see which way we all voted in the elections exactly. Yes, good. Okay, imagine if Theresa May was here and she left the room. Good. Brexit is a fact, seriously, isn't it? They're never coming back, are they? So that we can double that, we can triple that. Because, ladies and today today we're here to learn. We are here to fill our heads up with ideas, and ideas create a more intelligent world. I mean, where would we be without intelligence? Seriously, probably sitting at a desk in the White House. So stay awake, ladies and gentlemen. Stay awake. Learn a lot. Otherwise, you'll be running the free worlds. And without any further ado, double the applause, triple the enthusiasm. I'm going to bring on our first speaker of this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to love this. I'm not going to say anything about the subjects. I'm leaving that entirely up to them. So a huge round of applause for our first speaker of this evening, Pablo van der Lucht.
I am concerned. I'm concerned about the disturbing messages about climate change and the related droughts, hurricanes, and floods. Not only in tropical areas, but also in Europe and North America. Houston, we have another problem. This is caused by growing global population and related growing consumption of raw materials and fossil fuels, leading to ever-increasing emissions of greenhouse gases. One of the main contributors to the greenhouse gas effect is the building industry. Yet we all know we need to live in a house, right? This is the problem. You see it here. What do you see? You see concrete, you see steel, you see aluminium, glass, plastics. All non-renewable materials. At some point, these will be depleted. There will be no more. We also increasingly keep deforesting our tropical rainforests. If we continue like this, in 500 years, all tropical rainforests will be gone. So you might say, okay, I won't live up to 500 years. But your generation will see the end of ore to produce metals, the end of oil-based plastics. That's not a happy introduction, is it? Thankfully, as human beings, we have the power to imagine, power of imagination. So join me, close your eyes, think about this one building material, which is rapidly renewable, which captures huge amounts of CO2 during growth, which has a tensile strength stronger than steel, which is harder than hardwood. Sounds nice, right? It is here. It's just overlooked. It's grass. It's giant grass. Giant bamboo. Giant bamboo grows across the globe in tropical to subtropical regions. One of the big benefits of giant bamboo is its enormous growing speed. I remember when I did my master's thesis to become a building engineer in Costa Rica in a social housing project working with bamboo. I came for the first time at a giant bamboo plantation. I saw shoots coming up here and here. I came back one day later. The same shoots were up here. Bamboo can grow up to 1 meter a day. It will take 2 to 3 months for it to grow up to 25 to 30 meters, right through the roof, and these kind of diameters. Then it will take about 4 years until it's ready for harvesting to be used as a durable building material. By harvesting at 4-year-old age, the other shoots will have room to grow even quicker. This means every year you can harvest 25% of the 4-year-old stems, right? You can do the math. So this means that by default you have no deforestation because you have an annual harvest with bamboo. And those 4 years are really impressive if you compare it with other building materials, renewable building materials, such as softwoods. A pine tree will take up to 30 years before it's ready for harvesting. A hardwood tree, such as oak, might take up to 80 years before it's ready for harvesting. Not even mentioning those non-renewable materials we so often still use. You cannot harvest them, you can merely deplete them. So I think I got your attention now. Bamboo, that sounds good, but why isn't it then mass adopted yet? Let's do another of those mental exercises. Close your eyes. Think of the first bamboo product that comes to mind. Yeah, you got it? I've done a lot of consumer research during my PhD. And there's a good chance that one of the images that have been coming up could be this. A tacky tiki bar. Come on, guys. Or cheap colonial furniture. Handicraft basketry. Maybe you went back to your warm childhood memories and thought of your first fishing rods. But probably you have been thinking of this animal. You've been thinking of bamboo as panda food. And don't worry about the panda. They eat a totally different bamboo species than we use for our building materials. But you see, there's a kind of image problem here, right? And it gets worse. In the country where bamboo grows, tropical regions, bamboo is so abundantly available and it's so inexpensive therefore that mostly poor people live there. So it's associated with poverty. And actually these kind of houses are a perfect place in, especially if they're clad with mud and mortar to resist earthquakes. Still, it is known as the poor man's timber. What a waste, what a pity! Because the potential of bamboo lies merely in the limitations of the designer, architect or builder working with it. Because tell me, does this look like poor man's timber to you? These $1 million bamboo mansions in the Green Village in Bali, designed by Ibuku, making magnificent use of the lightness, strength and flexibility of this material to produce a fairy tale-like villa. I bet you wouldn't mind living here, right? But I hear the next little voice in your head saying, sure, right, it works in Bali, but not here in these kind of temperate regions. We want to keep the wind and rain out. It doesn't work. No way. You are so wrong. We have a new solution. You wonder what's in here, right? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the future of bamboo. Industrially processed, engineered bamboo building materials. I hear your next question. How do you get from this round, hollow bamboo stem to these kind of solid building materials? It's actually really easy. Think about making French fries. You push your potato through a star-formed knife. And what we do with the bamboo strips. We take out of the outer and the inner skin, and then we have a bamboo strip. The bamboo strip is the building block to produce all kinds of high-end building materials. Beams, panels, boards, in all kinds of styles, and super strong. Now I told you that bamboo grows incredibly quick, so it absorbs huge amounts of CO2. For my PhD, I calculated the carbon footprint for these kind of bamboo building materials. Including transport and processing and production, these kind of materials have a negative carbon footprint of almost minus half a ton of CO2 per ton of building material produced. A lot better than sustainably sourced hardwoods. Of course, not even comparing with the super high CO2 emitting materials we so often use. Concrete, metals, plastics. And it looks good too. What do you think about these kinds of two-colored bamboo flooring in a bank office in the Netherlands? Or these walls and ceilings in this office in Israel? 200,000 square meters of curved ceiling panel in Madrid International Airport. Beautiful, stable, posh outdoor decking in Switzerland. A bridge roof and deck in Israel. Huge surfaces of bamboo cladding in this facade in Norway. And this is the next development. Structural use of laminated and engineered bamboo. We'll start small. Pergolas, carports. But in the future, when there will be more building codes for bamboo, we'll see huge constructions made of engineered bamboo. So, this building material is fit for purpose, isn't it? And then, there are many other applications where we can utilize bamboo as well. What about, for example, furniture? This beautiful Dutch design chair makes perfect use of the flexibility of bamboo. But don't get me wrong, bamboo is actually quite stiff. You can only bend it further without breaking than wood. You can make all kinds of musical instruments out of it. Very cool guitars. You can make sports equipment out of it. Skateboards, surfboards, wakeboards. All making maximum use of the combined flexibility and strength of this material. We have a bamboo bike. And when you fall off, we have a bamboo helmet to protect you. And actually, it can be cool as well. Now bamboo has become cool. Look at my bamboo iPhone. Or a bamboo cover to protect your newest MacBook. The automotive industry is adopting bamboo. Instead of the chestnut or walnut interior, you now have to choose to have a sustainable bamboo interior in the latest Lexus, including a full solid bamboo steering wheel. We can do more. We can extract the bamboo fiber, combine it with a bio-based resin, and even 3D print these kind of objects, like a vase, fully biodegradable. We can also take out the bamboo fiber, make paper out of it, or cardboards for sustainable packaging. We can go further. We can take out this bamboo fiber and produce a silky soft yarn out of it to produce antibacterial, odorless textile. For example, to produce t-shirts, bamboo, socks, it's bamboo. Yes, bamboo underwear. I'll keep it private, but it's there. So you see, one size fits all. This one rapidly renewable resource can meet all these various applications and needs. Talking about deforestation again. Did I tell you yet that bamboo is perfectly suitable for reforesting degraded land, even on eroded slopes? This is China, 10 years ago, a certain region. The Chinese government have decided to actively reforest with bamboo. This is 10 years later. Now, if I tell you that 1 hectare of bamboo planted captures 1,000 tons of CO2 in the soil, in the roots, in the stems, and the durable products made out of it. And as a bonus, you get each year again, in a sustainable way, without deforestation, 20 cubic meters of building material. This is 1 cubic meter. 20 times as much. The problem of tropical deforestation is a big one. Now let's look at the natural growing area of giant bamboo. We see an interesting overlap here, a nice opportunity. The World Resource Institute has identified those degraded lands that are suitable for reforestation. Here it is. It's a purple map. Let's assume we would do this with bamboo. You see the overlap. The tropical countries in this world have taken a commitment in the Bonn Challenge, like the German city. The commitment is to reforest 350 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. Let's assume we teach them to do it with giant bamboo. They have also overlooked it. But now we know there will be 2 huge benefits. 1, carbon capture. I told you before, 1 hectare of bamboo is 1,000 tons of CO2. So 350 million hectares of bamboo means 350 million kilotons of CO2 absorbed. Wow, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But it doesn't tell you anything. But if I tell you that the global CO2 emissions of this world, so each year, are 35 million kilotons. That means by meeting the Bonn Challenge with bamboo, we can compensate 10 years long our global CO2 emissions, which buys us time to truly transit to a green energy economy. There is a bonus, because I also told you 1 hectare of bamboo will produce each year again 20 cubic meters of high quality building materials. So imagine if we do 350 million hectares. Each year again we will have 7,000 million cubic meters of high quality building materials. Enough to produce 350 million social houses. Not once, but every year, again and again, in a sustainable way. Enough to house a full continent like South America. Huge carbon capture, enormous pool of building materials. You see the potential, right? Now, if a few moments ago I would have told you that grass could save the world, you would be laughing at me. But what do you say now? Thank you.
That's a huge round of applause for Jonathan. Look, he's our stage technician. Look at that. He heard about the wonderful properties of bamboo and came straight on to steal the case. Well done. Hey, yeah, there's a bit of a dip there because we have to wait for when the speaker speaks and he stops and they take a pause and the video cameras keep going and I have to wait till I come up. That's why it feels a bit awkward. You're not convinced, okay. I was asleep on the side of the stage. Okay, fine. Who's going to go out and plant bamboo? It's exciting stuff, isn't it? Seriously, what I love about these TED conferences, TEDx conferences, is you learn so much. I mean, seriously, and you learn a lot about it. I mean, I'm completely convinced. I love the way a Dutchman here is trying to sell us grass. Takes the Dutch to come up with something like that, doesn't it? We'll be walking behind Central Station tonight and somebody would be coming up and going, "Psst, you want to buy some bamboo, mate? Look at that." But yes, ladies and gentlemen, like I say, let's keep the energy high. We've got 4 speakers in the first half, so I'm not going to waffle on too much. And what I want to do is I want to make sure everybody's up for it. Everybody happy? Everybody ready for the next speaker? That's the energy we need, ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker will be coming up and enthralling you with her wonderful findings, ladies and gentlemen. Give her a huge round of applause for Marianne Speer.
Thank you for the introduction, Bob. Good evening, everybody. So today I want to talk about the 5 principles of social impact. Why is it that 2 people have the same opportunities and same educations, and one become a successful game changer, and the other one doesn't reach a level of success or impact? This question, we discussed it many times while I was working as a manager at the University of Amsterdam for 8 years. And we were talking about it, and after that I left the university, became an entrepreneur, traveling all over the world. I met a lot of social entrepreneurs and also students, career professionals who asked me this question: how can I change my society? How can I change my surroundings? How can I create impact? And then I would ask them, if it is an entrepreneur, I would ask them, do you have a plan? If it is a career professional, I would ask them, what's your passion? And if it's a student, I would ask them, what would you do after 5 years? So while I was traveling and I went to more than 20 nations, so I met a lot of people. So that's why I didn't want to use pictures, because then I would show more than 100 pictures. And I wanted to share this story, what I saw and what I observed. So it is so funny, because a few days ago, I had a discussion with a few entrepreneurs, and they were talking about, what is a social entrepreneur? Aren't you just an entrepreneur? I said, no. A social entrepreneur is completely different from a regular entrepreneur. You want to create a social impact. So after somebody said it, said, please explain. I went back home and I researched it. I looked for a good definition, of course, Stanford. And I said, okay, this is the correct definition. Social impact, how organizations or people's actions affect the surrounding community. So how can you how can you affect the surrounding community? How can your organization affect the surrounding community? Well, I researched more, and then I discovered these 5 principles, and it was also nice to make it the 5 C's. So I will go with you through all these 5 C's and explain to you what I observed. And I will share a few stories of people I met, and also just stories I found by reading articles. Finding stories about people who created social impact. So the first thing I discovered is that most of the people that created a huge social impact looked for an opportunity. They looked out for an opportunity. And one of the persons, I looked up a lot of entrepreneurs and career professionals, and I found one. Nowadays, they would call her a refugee, Estée Lauder, who started right after World War II selling beauty products. But what she did is not just sell beauty products. She started sampling products. So nowadays, when you buy a beauty product and it's a sample, it was an idea by Estée Lauder. She created an impact, a business impact, and she became also a successful entrepreneur, also helping other female entrepreneurs. The other thing I explain most of the time when people say, I want to change, I want to break through, is that clarity is very important. You have to strategize. You have to look where am I going? Visualize your goals. I know a tech entrepreneur by the name of Mariemi Jemmy. She's from Senegal. She was trafficked to France, and now her goal is to reach 1 million young women all over the world to teach them how to code. And everything about her is how to reach that goal. She travels all over the world. We discussed it many times. She has a clear strategy. She can visualize it. She can explain it. have a passion for what you do. So a lot of people think that when you're passionate, that you're emotional. That's not true. I spoke to one of the co-founders of TomTom, a female entrepreneur, who said, I go for what I want. And I don't do it alone. I do it with my team. And I make sure that I sit at the table. There's a lot of people are talking about seat at the table. But she said, when you have a seat at the table, it is very important not to become the menu at the table, which was for me really an eye-opener. Because a lot of time, with all our passion, we want to have a seat at the table at what you want to achieve, change the world or change your surrounding. But be careful not to become the menu. You need to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You need to be ready. I organized a startup award for young entrepreneurs, and you can see that they want to, they're so focused on creating a perfect product. But a perfect product is not enough. You need to have an entrepreneurial mindset. How will you reach that goal? Strategize. Is it clear? What do you want? A lot of time people create beautiful products, but they cannot explain to an investor or even to their colleague what they really want or what they really need. So you need to have an entrepreneurial mindset. The last one is be considerate and determined. That is something that I observed also. Be purposeful and meaningful in everything you do. Lex Peters is a gynecologist and oncologist I've known for many years. He's even retired now. And what was so an eye-opener for me is that he told me, for 40 years, I go to my job full of joy. I was like, oh no, I'm not that kind of person. That's amazing. But after his retirement, he even went further. He wasn't not just a professor. After that, he wanted to save especially young women's lives. And what he did is he discovered that with vinegar and with a piece of cotton, you can save a young woman's life so that she will not, you can prevent cervical cancer. And for me, this is somebody who is almost 70 years old, but so determined, and not just determined to make a lot of money, which is also good, but really to impact his society and his surroundings, not just in the Netherlands, but also in the world. So, in conclusion, a lot of times people want to create social impact, and what I've seen, I've talked about these 5 C's, is that most of all these people, they work very hard. That is one thing they all do. But it is also not about them. They want to change their society. So if you're here, and you're an entrepreneur, or maybe a student, or a career professional, you can start by changing and applying 1C. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. So, now our hot technical crew is going to switch on all their buttons. We actually asked some of the top working professionals in audiovisual to be here this afternoon. They couldn't make it, but we have this wonderful crew up here as well. Guys, and to be put polite, we're going to switch over to film, so kick back and enjoy.
This is the human test, a test to see if you are a human. Please raise your hand if something applies to you. Are we agreed? Yes? Then let's begin. Have you ever eaten a booger long past your childhood? It's okay, it's safe here. Have you ever made a small, weird sound when you remembered something embarrassing? Have you ever purposely lowercased the first letter of a text in order to come across as sad or disappointed? Okay. Have you ever ended a text with a period as a sign of aggression? Okay. Period. Have you ever laughed or smiled when someone said something shitty to you and then spent the rest of the day wondering why you reacted that way? Yes. Have you ever seemed to lose your airplane ticket 1,000 times as you walked from the check-in to the gate? Yes. Have you ever put on a pair of pants and then much later realized that there was a loose sock smushed up against your thigh? Good. Have you ever tried to guess someone else's password so many times that it locked their account? Have you ever had a nagging feeling that one day you will be discovered as a fraud? Yes, it's safe here. Have you ever hoped that there was some ability you hadn't discovered yet, that you were just naturally great at? Have you ever broken something in real life and then found yourself looking for an undo button in real life? Have you ever misplaced your TED badge and then immediately started imagining what a 3-day Vancouver vacation might look like? Have you ever marveled at how someone you thought was so ordinary could suddenly become so beautiful? Have you ever stared at your phone smiling like an idiot while texting with someone? Have you ever subsequently texted that person the phrase, "I'm staring at the phone, smiling like an idiot"? Have you ever been tempted to and then gave in to the temptation of looking through someone else's phone? Have you ever had a conversation with yourself and then suddenly realized you're a real asshole to yourself? Has your phone ever run out of a battery in the middle of an argument and it sort of felt like the phone was breaking up with both of you? Have you ever thought that working on an issue between you was futile because it should just be easier than this, or this is supposed to happen just naturally? Have you ever realized that very little in the long run just happens naturally? Have you ever woken up blissfully and suddenly been flooded by the awful remembrance that someone had left you? Have you ever lost the ability to imagine a future without a person that no longer was in your life? Have you ever looked back on that event with the sad smile of autumn and the realization that futures will happen regardless? Congratulations. You have now completed the test. You are all human.
Interesting how to become, so much of that was about our relationship with mobile phones, which makes us human, apparently. But it's true, isn't it? I mean, all of us here, how many of us, just to carry on with that, how many of us are like this at least an hour a day? Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Like anybody, I'm also addicted to my phone, and we all share our applications. My favorite application I want to share with you, there's probably some programmers here. It changed my life. It's an application called Shazam. You know this one? It tells you the name of the music coming out of speakers. I have no idea it works. You just point your telephone at speakers, press a button, and it tells you the name of the artist. Any artist, any language, any music. Chinese, Japanese, French, Spanish, whatever. It's so clever. I gave it the ultimate test. I thought, what would happen if I tried it on random noises? So I walked into a thing. Now, it's a thing I've only ever seen in Holland, and I have to use the Dutch word, a kinderboerderij. For non-Dutch people, it translate. Well, you shouldn't translate it as a children's farm. Really, if you're from New Zealand and you go to a children's farm, you're going to get arrested. You were way too much enjoying that joke, mate. Seriously. So, with this little piece of technology, I walked into the kinderboerdery, the children's farm, and I pointed it at a goat, and the goat went. I went, okay, what's that? Oh, James Blunt. It does work. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope your concentration is fresh. We've got a lot more speakers coming up. And as we have done all afternoon, as we'll keep on doing, we will clap and cheer and whistle and enjoy very much, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker. Huge round of applause for Theo Kemperink.
The world we live in is developing fast. Keeping up is a challenge, and you need resources, stamina, and especially skills to adapt. A few decades ago, who could have imagined that our kids would be connected to the internet, so-called internet, 24 hours a day? That our government services and shopping would be done mostly online? Is it a surprise that some people can't keep up? That they miss opportunities? That they lose contact with their world? It's likely that these people feel estranged, left out, insecure, and at the end even unsafe. And this is how individuals and communities grow apart. And at the same time, economic access and social access become increasingly unequal along the lines of gender, race, culture, and, for instance, educational level. Ladies and gentlemen, inequality. Inequality has many aspects. For instance, it's extremely toxic. It's so toxic that it's a vicious circle leading to higher stress and poorer health. In societies marked by inequality, mental health issues are up to 5 times more common than in other societies. And the list continues. Exclusion, isolation, school dropouts, drug abuse, and even illiteracy. Inequality is a social cancer. And the more it grows, the more debilitating it becomes. And it prevents our societies from creating a sustainable future. It's no wonder that reducing inequality is one of the UN's 17 global goals for a sustainable development. And although inequality has a global and a national scale, its causes and effects also occur in our own communities, in our own cities. Given all this, it should be no surprise that inequality is a threat to democracy. Recent studies showed a direct relationship between household income and civic involvement. The higher the income, the greater the engagement. From discussions and reading newspapers at home to participation in protests, political meetings, and interaction with government officials and even civic organizations. Inequality ranks high among the threats to democracy, up there with climate change, polarization and populism, and the fear of terrorism. And the result is a public that is polarized, volatile, ill-informed, and alienated from political institutions. Individuals isolate themselves among like-minded peers in their own bubble, but when the people, demos in democracies, and opinions don't come together anymore, democracy dies. We're gathered here in the theater of the Rotterdam Public Library, where I serve as a director, and libraries are taking an increasingly proactive and leading role in connecting people. How? Well, by providing public spaces where people can meet and interact with each other, where they also can engage and participate in political institutions. Participation in political institutions, what does it look like? Well, it's expressing yourself, but not only in your Facebook or Twitter bubble, but speaking out on behalf of yourself, or even better, on behalf of people you represent. Exchanging ideas, debating, listening in a safe environment characterized by mutual respect. This is how communities learn from and with each other. Libraries can activate people and encouraging community participation and thereby strengthening democracy. And since democracies are also learning societies, we need libraries to connect knowledge to communities. But let's talk a bit more about that original threat to democracy and inequality, and then especially about a major aspect of it, exclusion. For those who don't fit into the norm, whether gender or economics or race or culture, it feels all too normal. Whatever it is that makes you exceptional can also lead to becoming an outsider. But people who feel left out tend to check out. But when exceptional people check out, their voice can no longer be heard and they no longer contribute. To be sure, the ideal of equality does not mean that everyone should be alike. Equality is not the same as an absence of variation. Vive la différence has never rung so true. Let me tell you a secret. Before I was a library director, I was a biologist with a PhD in evolutionary biology, to be honest, in snails. But what biology taught us all is that populations thrive when they are diverse. We all know monocultures without diversity are threatened by circumstances they can survive. It's variation that helps populations, whether snails or mice or humans, to adapt and survive during stressful and adverse conditions. Variation is necessary. Rotterdam is a city with a population with 175 different countries of origin. That's even more than New York City's 150. With this kind of cultural, social, ethnic diversity, our city has the potential to be exceptionally resilient if all these exceptional people don't check out, if their voice can be heard, and if they can contribute. So we need a place where these people don't feel left out, where they can contribute, and where they're sure their voice can be heard. Public libraries, warm, welcoming, open spaces, and without barriers, with a lot of books, but with a core business of connecting people. Our library organizes more or less 3,000 different events a year, like debates, exhibitions, meet and greet with popular vloggers, reading sessions, the list goes on, only to bring people from different backgrounds and social strata together. Libraries have taken on a crucial role in building and maintaining an inclusive society. So, libraries attract and serve a lot of people. But in the process, they're also witness of one of the most epidemic struggles, the struggle with reading and writing. Illiteracy. Illiteracy is one of the aspects of inequality, and it is known that they mutually reinforce and interact with each other. Did you know that 1 out of 10 adults worldwide is illiterate? That's a staggering 760 million people. In Rotterdam, the city where I live and work, 21% of the population is functionally illiterate, meaning they cannot read at a basic level. That's exceptionally high for the Netherlands, but it's a low figure compared to metropoles worldwide. Kids, the Netherlands, 18% of the 15-year-olds cannot read letters from school or understand movie subtitles. And let's talk about the USA. 19% of the high school graduates cannot read at the basic level. Not to mention the 32 million adults who are illiterate. And also interesting to know, these are not only immigrants, as a lot of people want to know or want to think. Illiteracy spans the cultural and racial spectrum. The odds are stacked against functionally illiterate people. I'll mention a few things. They are 3 times more likely to be depending on welfare. If they have a job, the job pays less. If they have debts, the debts are higher. And now it comes. Life expectancy of functionally illiterate people is up to 6 years less than that of their literate peers. Fortunately, there's an antidote. Literacy. And also fortunately, there is someone or something that dispenses this cure. Your local library. Local libraries have a lot of programs for people struggling with illiteracy, but they also spend a lot of efforts in preventing illiteracy with beautiful programs. For instance, for babies, kids, adults, and even for school teachers to help them use our collections in their schools at all levels. Only together we can fight illiteracy and combat inequality. It's less obvious that we need a lot of people to work with. On top of our 250 staff members in this library, we literally interface with thousands of volunteers and partners from all over the city, from local clubs and local organizations with an educational program, both formal or informal. I have a beautiful program, a beautiful example for you. One of our most successful programs is the so-called Language Café. Once or twice a week, over 100 citizens come together in one of our branches to work on their literary skills, on their language skills, I have to say. Small groups, together with a volunteer, they read bits and pieces of local Dutch newspapers. And both the volunteers and the participants tell us how successful this is and how this opens new worlds for them. It's a truly win-win situation. And of course, literacy is vital to education. And education is your key to a success. So, the last 10 minutes or so, we've taken a look into illiteracy, exclusion, and especially inequality. And the vital role of libraries fighting these threats to democracy. Okay, libraries are still about books, but the last decade or so, they became so much more. Bustling centers where people can learn, where they can develop, where they can meet, where they can exchange with people from different backgrounds, or where they can just relax. Inviting, but potentially life-changing places. More and more, libraries are the keystone to a strong and supportive society. And therefore, accessibility to all people from all walks of life and financial income, all people is crucial. So therefore, it's also crucial that libraries remain publicly and especially freely accessible. We also learned that libraries need both staff and volunteers to do their work. Only together we can fight inequality and combat democracy's threats. To be truly successful, we need everyone's inspiration, everyone's involvement, and everyone's support. Donors, you see some members, government officials, you, neighbors, especially you. It's my hope that you take a moment to think about what your local library is doing to serve your community. That you take a moment to think how you can help. Your support can help secure a better future for us all. Thank you.
Theo Kemperman, ladies and gentlemen, excuses, I slightly mispronounced his name on the way up. Kemperman, Theo Kemperman, who's the leader of the library here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have good news. We're coming up to our last speaker of the first half. Is everybody still happy? And I see people bustling around. Some people getting on the last train to Schiedam, obviously. Great, excellent. It was a lovely thing I saw in the... It was surprised me. The information I pick up when I'm sitting at the side, Rotterdam had, I think, how many was it? More than 150 nationalities living here? That's 175, isn't that brilliant? More than New York. I mean, that inspired me because I'm here as a New Zealander in this country, and I live in Holland as a New Zealander, and I claim to be the most foreign person in the country. I do, because you can't get further away from Nederland than New Zealand, can you? You can't even try, because if you try, you can't start coming back. I'm geographically the most far away point on the earth is New Zealand from Holland, which makes me the most foreign person in the room, which is quite an achievement. And I live in this country, and I voted for the extreme right party, the PVV, because I heard they were sending people home, and I can't afford the ticket. Anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, it brings us to the last speaker before the break, so please give them just as much attention and respect. And a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Hani Sheri.
Wow. Hey there. The universe is poetic. It's vivid, it's full of colors. The colors that we see and the colors that we don't. And the ones that we see, the colors that we see are obscured by our lenses of our senses. So it's becoming more and more difficult to be able to identify the true colors of the skies. I am a scientist, and as a scientist, I would say that nature is our limit. And nature is governed by physics. And physics has a language, and that's mathematics. As a kid, though, I would look at a lizard, and I'd say, cool, and I'd run and try to touch that lizard. Edgar Allan Poe said, invisible things are the only realities. So I was at school, at high school. I had a science project. And that was about black holes. I really like science, you realize that. And I worked really hard. I gave in a 20-page document full of jargon, very complex stuff. Went up to the blackboard, fantastic presentation, A+, easy. Then came up my friend. His project was about extraterrestrial creatures. Very cool. The guy handed in one single page, and there was only a drawing on it, and I think he drew it during my presentation. And the guy was like, okay, I'll give you my presentation as well. So he went to the blackboard, and he did this. He just drew a very big circle, and he said, that's the universe. All right? Okay, and that's a little dot, and that's us, all of us. And he was like, are you guys stupid to think that you're alone? Of course there's extraterrestrial creatures. And then he went back to his place. The teacher went crazy. What? What are you talking about? Come back here. Is that a report? Whatever. She gave him a huge circle with a dot in it. And the funny thing is that the dot in Arabic means 0 as well. So, but the thing is, I was looking at that guy and I was like, wow, this is it. I mean, the clarity, the simplicity of his explanation. I mean, that's how you would talk about extraterrestrial creatures, right? I mean, there are loads of documentaries, but that's it. So I felt that I was boring. I said, what happened to me? 10 years back, I was way cooler than that. When I was like 8, 9 years old. I used to take things, you bring me a gift, I break it apart, I look at what's inside, I just want to know what's in there. I found out there were like bulbs and motors and stuff like that. And I'd try to fuse things together. So I said, okay, a car can become a boat a robot. And it's just really experimentation, having fun and so on. I never really cared what actually the process has to be, it's just I had to break it apart. And my dad was helping me as well. My dad was faster in breaking things than I was, so whenever we got a present, before even trying it out, we broke it apart, and then we tried to see what's in there. I was experimenting all the time. I even took a cable, and I tried to plug it into both terminals of the power plug, and it exploded. I learned it shouldn't be the case, because it hurts. But I tried it. I mean, it's fun, right? Don't try that. Doesn't work. Then I remembered, and that was like a few weeks back, that I had a secret book of inventions, I called it. So I called up my family in Lebanon, and I said, can you please find that thing? It's no longer secret now. They had to look for it, they found it, and then they sent me some photos. I live in France. And then I looked into it, and I found out that there was a very cool invention, a list of different things. I realized that I actually invented a spaceship. And it looks like that. That was the schematic. In fact, it's a very simple way. I mean, I wanted to go to space. I really like space. I don't know what to do. So I thought, okay, I've got all these little tools. I get a big cardboard, and I rolled it around and made a cylinder. And then you get another cardboard. You draw all kind of space stuff that you care about. Space creatures, don't forget about them. Stick them on that thing, and that thing has to turn around. And you make your own spaceship with a joystick that moves in between of all of these guys. Don't forget to put light, and then make it very dark to feel that you're in space. You can go to space, but you bring space down to Earth. And that was aimless. That was just to have fun, right? Don't forget as well that you need to have another seat, because you don't go to space alone. There was one thing, though, that I had no idea how it works. That was wireless. That was really the frustration for me. I saw that you've got RC cars, they work, but I had no idea, so I got the wires, I cut them, doesn't work. I thought it was simple, but there was something there. I mean, that was something invisible. I sensed it somehow, but I didn't know how it worked. And then the funny thing about all of that is that, and now thinking about it recently, thinking about the invisible built the person who I am today. I have developed lots of traits. I took interest in magic, in reading mystery books, ravens, and stuff like that. And then, here I am. It's been 10 years now. I'm a researcher with a PhD on nanotechnologies, and I know how invisible works, and I can control invisible light. So it's funny how things actually connect, right? I mean, it was never there, it was just aimless. And to me, that was all inspired by observing nature around me, because there are readily fantastic things happening over there. And I work on a very specific type of light that's called the T light, terahertz light. So in the future, we'll be hearing about it a lot. It's a very fantastic thing. It's just some kind of light that our eyes can't see. And the cool thing is that it's not dangerous for human beings, like X-ray, for example, unlike X-ray. And the cool thing about it is that it interacts in a nice way with matter. So that's it. So I fooled around, I made loads of circuits and so on and so forth. But at some point in the future, which is recent, I decided to invent a bat. What does a bat do? I said, okay, I'll try to see if my T-light stuff, nanoelectronic circuits, can do that. So I actually worked hard on building very, very tiny circuits that can send out T-light, bounces off an object, comes back to that bat, and then tells how far that object is. But not only so, it can identify the type of thing it's looking at, so it can tell if it's skin, if it's metal, plastic, etc. And beyond that as well, T-light actually can go through objects, so I can tell if there's something hidden inside of that. So I was like, wow, that's really cool, right? I mean, it's like Superman powers. You can see X-ray, except that it's T-ray. And then it's a bat, so I called it a super bat. And you can make it super small, these super bats, really few millimeters. Now you can make thousands and thousands of these guys, make them work together, so swarms of super bats. And again, aimlessly, it was just really having fun. And then I took that and I went out and I spoke to people in the industry, and people in the industry were like, whoa, this is actually what we're looking for. Nowadays, industry, I invite you to go and visit at some point the really heavy machinery. These guys have issues. They detect their defects really late on after production, so that produces loads of pollution. And these super bats, they could be distributed along the production lines, and they can find out if there are defects really early on, reducing pollution and also having fun. But all of that is actually coming from the bizarre, what we say it's the bizarre thing, right? Give me a task to do and I'll be very bored. I would say, no, I can do it, but I'll be very bored. But give me something fun, open and tough for me, I will enjoy that. And I felt that we are polluted by our expertise, unlike when we were kids, right? In a way, grown-ups take the fun out of things. And this is what we all do, unfortunately. So we need to do more bizarre stuff. And to tell you something about bizarre, this is my band. So I have a very typical band in Grenoble in France. And with my band, we do a very standard type of music. It's called the experimental space death metal thing. Very compact name, right? We make conceptual songs, and our songs have scary and funny parts, and we go to space, so it tells a story. You meet space creatures, you fall in love with them, you fight them, etc., and so on and so forth. Very typical, right? And then what we did is that we invited friends to come over, and friends were always saying, whoa, your music is so weird. I was like, whoa, thanks. They said, no, we love you, but we won't come to your music. I was like, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. It's all about, that's it. I mean, we are simply experimenting, right? And while experimenting, and I assure you, you will find many, many things that you will stumble upon throughout your time. And this is what actually was happening to me. Because while observing this kind of noise, what most of you would call noise metal music, you will find lots of harmonics, you will find lots of information. And this is how nature works. Nature is full of innovation, and nature doesn't know noise and non-noise. It just knows that it's going on. As it evolves, it just simply evolves, right? So I observe nature, and remember that we spoke a minute ago about, or a while ago, about the lizard? So I said, okay, I work on T-rays, why don't I make it T-lizard? And that's it. In fact, I remember something that happened when something I learned while I was at the university. Electronic circuits, they are what they are with respect to their environment. If you hold a mobile phone in your hand, it's not the same as when you leave it on the desk. Because your hand actually becomes the environment of your mobile phone and the electronic circuits inside. Nowadays, nano-electronic designers, the guys that design what's inside of your mobile phones, are so good to make it work while it's in your hand and it's on the table. So keeping this in mind, I thought of this. I said, okay, I need to design a lizard, something that can sense things, but I don't have one. So I went back to my super bat. I went to the lab. I made sure nobody was around because I was going to do something I'm not allowed to do. I brought my finger and I touched it. And I looked at the signal. The signal changed. I brought a piece of metal, it changed but differently. Plastic, another different signal. For me, that was eureka. I rushed back to my office, I started simulating things and I started designing things, and voila. I designed a very tiny little 100 micrometer circuit that is capable to work on terahertz light, T-light. You bring it close to any environment, and while it is there, it senses that environment and produces a signal. So it's invisible things converted to a color that we can understand. So I made, again, thousands and thousands of these guys. Then you can make like some kind of image, complete image, of whatever object you're coming close to. That was all aimless. It was just to have fun. But then I went and I spoke around to my friends. We should always talk to our friends about things we do. And I spoke to people at the hospital, and I was saying, look, I did this. Can we brainstorm about that? And they were like, yeah, we came up with really a list of ideas. And one of them, which actually touches me completely, one of them is the detection of skin cancer on the spot. Imagine if you have a very small circuit that you can integrate in something that looks like a pen, and you can bring it very close to skin and make it like a complete image, and on the spot, you can know if there's cancer or not. And this is what we are working on right now with these guys, and it was all aimless from the start. It all started from breaking apart that little car, exploding my face with a power plug, towards the lizard. So what feeds this? What motivates me to do all that, and what could motivate us all to do all that? It's mystery sometimes, right? And mystery is there all the time. So let us all explore our mysteries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hani. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is pause. Oh, great reaction. You're really... And we can go to the... We have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes to go out there and explore some of the things we've learned. So I challenge you all to go out there and work on your social impact by reading a library book on how to design a spaceship with bamboo. We'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. Thanks very much. See you soon. Ciao. Yes, thank you. And thank you for that huge round of applause. That's lovely. That's just wonderful. I was waiting backstage for a film, sorry. But welcome, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody? Good. Everybody got coffee in. Great. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And did you enjoy the first half? Time for a bit of a discussion. Did you enjoy the first half? Yes. Great. And a single clap of excellence. That's very nice, mate. Everybody, yes. One clap. That's what it was worth. Good. And listen, at the start of the show, I didn't actually ask. I asked who were Dutch. It's about 50% of the room is Dutch. Who's not from Holland? Make some noise again. Yes. Who thinks they've come from far, far away to be here? Shout it out, the most far away place apart from me. Sorry? Ukraine? Oh, we can do better than that. Anybody better than that? Sorry? Tanzania? Good. Somebody over here? Sorry? Brazil. She even sounds it like saying the samba. Brazil. Okay. Colombia. Welcome, mate. Excellent. Anybody really exotic? The moon, yeah. China. Welcome. Half the world's here this evening. That's excellent. Great. Isn't it beautiful to see there's so many different cultures are here? And I think it's a little bit of a chance to, when we grasp, when we reach out to other cultures, we all make the mistake of going for the most obvious things. For example, New Zealand. What did you know about New Zealand? Kiwis. Yeah. There's a bit of a silence. We know Kiwis and earthquakes. Somebody at the front row. Yeah. Probably a geologist in the room. Yes, earthquakes. Very good. You had very good earthquakes there. Some of the best earthquakes in the South Pacific. They're very good. Kiwi. The big response was Kiwi, of course, which is that's New Zealand is called Kiwis. That's what we're called. It's a Maori word, and that's interesting because the Maoris are actually our cultural heritage. I'm sure you've seen the Maoris, because in New Zealand we don't have a national anthem, we have a dance. So if we play sport, we dance before it. It's called haka. It's from the Maoris. For example, if our national sport is rugby, you don't play it so much in Europe, but imagine if we would play the Dutch national rugby team, we would come out and we have a dance before we play sport. You guys would sing the national anthem, and then we'd come out and say, welcome to the rugby field. Hope you enjoy the game. Have a lovely afternoon. And the dance goes, Marco Mate, Gora! Marco Mate, Gora! Mama, Tiki, Mapititera! Yeah. You see, that last move is a challenge. It's called a pofudi. It's like, you're shouting to the other team, you must dance for us. That would be spectacular if we ever played the Dutch, wouldn't it? You must dance for us. All right, then. So, again, each country is known for its spectacular, cliches, for example. And to turn it around, like I say, what would be the most known thing about the Netherlands, both people that live here and people that are new to here? Cheese, yes. No other country has that, do they? Yes. Windmills? Mm-hmm. It's like you don't want to mention it, isn't it? Stroopwafels, yes. We're all trying to avoid the elephant in the room, aren't we? Yes. Lines of American tourists line up in Amsterdam and go like, stroopwafels, Can only find wooden shoes and stroopwafels. What the fuck? And this is what I love about cliches, because once you get to know a country, they fall away. Like in New Zealand, we don't really do much with Kiwis and Hakas. That's our expression to the rest of the world. And in the summer, a lot of my friends come to Holland, and they all want to do the whole thing about the weed. Especially my American friends. They're fascinated by the small country that was the first in the world to legalize soft drugs. Now we all live here now. We all realize that Holland is not exactly a giant coffee shop, is it? I mean, most Americans arrive here expecting it to be like a Jimi Hendrix video here, And yet you arrive in Holland and everybody's got short hair and they're on a bicycle in the rain going, I've got to go to work, get out of the way. So what went wrong? And I did my research and I've realized that the first country to actually have the sociological wisdom to go like, listen, soft drugs cost a lot of money to police. If we tolerate them, there won't be a problem. So they said to the people of Holland, soft drugs will be tolerated. Now you can do what you like. And the whole country went, so we can do what we like with soft drugs? Yep, okay, we'll sell them to the Germans then. Which is a pretty good idea. I've done a lot of research and I realized if Germany was my neighbor, no offense, but I'd keep them stoned the whole bloody time. Really, it's a... I've seen enough history programs to know. No, seriously, there would not have been a Second World War if they had built a coffee shop on the border of Holland. Because no matter how hard you try, you can't walk like a Nazi when you're stoned, can you? Oh my God, here come the Nazis. Hi, Hitler. Right. But again, I mean, cliches are fun, but here this afternoon, we're on the forefront, we're on the cutting edge of what's being researched, what's being thought about. We've seen brilliant ideas come past this afternoon, so we've got another 4 speakers coming up, and they've given me some huge tests of my pronunciation abilities, ladies and gentlemen. But with huge amount of ability and pride, I'm going to bring on the first speaker. Not only do you give him a huge round of applause, he's the first speaker, but I managed to pronounce his name perfectly. That's also worth double the applause, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the tension mounts. He's waiting here to thunder on stage. Huge round of applause for Himanshu Kachawaha.
When was the last time when you paid attention to the colors and the texture of the food? How many of you worry about what you are eating, why you are eating, and how you are eating? For most of us, food is nothing more than the fuel for the body. But for me, it's little different. I don't eat to live. I live to eat. And the reason is very simple. Whatever you eat, that's what your body will become. And if you want to be bold and beautiful, you have to eat bold and beautiful. I am founder and director of a food and catering company. I am neither a born chef nor a trained one. But I will come to that part of story little later. For now, I want to talk about my passion. My passion is to bring happiness with beautiful, healthy, and delicious food. When I talk to my customers, I ask them, did you notice what did you just eat? Why did you eat this? And what it does to your body? And most of them replies, we do understand food. We know what is in our food. We know what is the color, what is the texture, what is the taste of the food. And we do appreciate the creator of the food, the chef. And when they eat food, they enjoy it, whatever they want to. But you know what actually happens? Whenever the food comes in front of us, plated beautifully, our eyes pop out, and so does our mobile phone with the camera mode on. And we start taking pictures, not pictures for the perfect photo for our social media. We enjoy the aroma. We take the first bite. We send the kudos to the chef, great done. And that's it. That's where our cinema ends. After that, we are busy with everything else except food. But our cinema should continue, not only after a bite, till the end and after that. But we are busy with so many things that our glamorous big cinema turns to a TV soap series drama. Today, I'm not going to talk about veganism, vegetarian diets, meat, fish, flesh, nothing. I will talk about only healthy, delicious, and beautiful food. And do you know, you can live healthy life. You can enjoy food, and you can even turn your food to superfood just by paying little attention, just by knowing what you are eating, why you are eating, and how you are eating. So, how are we eating? Let's talk about chopsticks. Chopsticks are those thin wooden sticks what we normally find in the Asian restaurants. Do you know that they are one of the best gadgets to reduce your weight? Yes, they are. Let's see how. When we eat with chopsticks, we cannot eat a spoonful of the food or mouthful of the food. We have to take small bites. And when you take small bites, you feel fuller sooner. And your body turns to the slimmer version of yours. In Indonesia, or South of Asia, or in Sri Lanka, people use a lot of banana leaves. And the reason is very simple. Banana leaves are one of the best antioxidant. They also make sure that your blood sugar level will not rise very quickly. So they not only cook into that, they also steam in that, and they also eat on that. In India, you have seen people sitting cross-legged or eating food with the hands. There's a reason behind that. When you sit on the floor, it's a good exercise for your knees and your joints. And the posture when you sit straight, it also helps in the proper digestion of the food. Eating with the hands. The nature is made up of 5 elements: earth, water, space, fire, and air. And your 4 fingers and the thumb represents all those 5 elements. When you touch food with your hand, you know the temperature of the food. And when you touch something spicy, your finger starts to burn. So you also know if the food is too spicy or not. Even before you take the food in your mouth, you enjoy the aroma of the food. So your whole body is connected, aware of what is coming. So when the body is connected in such a way, you will not overeat unless until you are eating with somebody else's hand. These are the side characters of our movie. But what about the main character, the lead actor of our movie? Ingredients or the spices of the food. I mean, food cannot taste good if there is no spice in that. Whether it is as common as our table salt or as exotic as black truffles or the priciest spice in the world, saffron. Isn't it? And these spices can heal your body and can lead you to healthy life only if you know what does your body need and how to get into your body. Let's take a few examples. Turmeric is a very common spice used in Thai cuisine, Indian, Malaysian, Indonesian. And this is not used only for the color of the food. It is used for its medical properties. If you have any kind of allergy, if you have any inflammation in your body, or while working in the kitchen or somewhere you just cut your finger or you have a small wound, turmeric is a miracle for that. What you just need to do, consume turmeric. And the simplest way of consuming turmeric is known as golden milk. You boil one glass of milk, add 1 or 2 tablespoons of turmeric powder in that, let it boil for a couple of seconds, and add a pinch of black pepper in that. The black pepper is not for the taste. It is just that the curcumin in the turmeric will be absorbed in your body by more than 2000% just by adding a pinch of black pepper in that. Or ginger, which is used all over the world, is loaded with these medical benefits. It is very good for allergies, for skin issues, and even if you have cough problem, just take the ginger, roll it in the salt and eat 2-3 times a day for 2 days. All the slime will go away. Either bottle gourd or bitter gourd are one of the best medicine for your heart issues. Beetroot is one of the richest source of iron. Clove oil is the best remedy for your toothache. And I don't know if you know it, but the toothache is known as the second worst pain for human beings after labor pain. I'm a man, I cannot feel labor pain, so toothache is worst for me. And the clove oil does wonders with that. These are some of our main actors. What about the child actors or the micronutrients or the vitamins of our food? Chia seeds, hemp seeds, seaweed, walnuts, they are amazing source of omega-3 and omega-6. Products like soya beans, kidney beans, wheat protein, chickpeas, lentils, they are full with proteins. And you also don't need to worry about the different viruses and bacteria in the food. Wheatgrass juice, also known as the green blood, has the same pH level as blood. Spinach and other green leafy vegetables are very big source of vitamin B12, folic acid, potassium, magnesium, zinc and whatnot. And even the direction of the food is your body. Because as I said, whatever you eat, that's what your body will become. Your white blood cells live only up to 12 months. Your red blood cells live only 4 months. The colon cells will die after 4 days. And the sperms live only up to 3 days. And we do not go to the supermarket to buy those cells. Okay, give me some colon cells or give me some sperms. We don't go do that. These are being made by whatever you eat. So healthy food, healthy cells, healthy you. But how was I introduced to the amazing world of the food and the flavors? I'm a finance guy. And I never entered kitchen to cook until I was 24. In India, either your mom cooks or when you go outside, you have amazing food vendors who give delicious food to you. Of course, you have to pay for it. But you are not dearth of the option. But when I came to Netherlands in 2008 to do my executive masters in financial management, I had no mom, no street vendors, so no food for me. As a desperate move, I called my mom. I need food. She said, okay, buy all these things, mix this, put that, and let it cook. I mean, what do you mean by let it cook? I need to know how long I need to cook the curry. And she told me, you will know by yourself. No, it didn't happen. And actually, few of the curries I cooked for hours. And believe me, results are horrible. And as they say in the few things, do not try this at home. But one fine day, just one idea struck me. I don't know how does this food will be done, when will it be done. But one thing which I do know, that how does my mom's food smell like when she cooks it in her kitchen. And I tried it next time. When I was cooking the curry, I keep checking the aroma. Does it taste like my mom's food? No, it keeps on cooking. So till the food doesn't taste like my mom's food, I keep on cooking. And results were good, amazing. That was like a eureka moment for me. Wow, I found a magical trick to cook the food perfectly. But later on I realized, actually there is a science behind that. And the science is very simple. The one of the most common spice in the world has never been used for what it is called for. Salt has never been used for salt or saltiness. Salt has always been used in the food to extract the flavors of the ingredients, to bring all the aromas and the spices together and marry them to make the perfect curry for you. That's what the job of the salt. Even while cooking pasta, salt has never been used to add the saltiness in pasta. It has always been used to extract the flavors from the ingredients of the pasta and to maintain the temperature of the water. So the eureka moment for me was not a eureka anymore. It was just a science. And this trick taught me the different flavors and the aromas and the experience of the food. And since then, I never tasted food while cooking. And this food, which started as a compulsion on me, took me over as my passion. And after finishing my master's, I joined insurance industry to save the world from the next financial crisis. But then I thought, instead of saving the world, why don't I make them happy and healthier, and they can survive on their own? And I quit. I quit my illustrious, well-paid, well-settled job and started cooking. Nowadays, we are doing corporate catering, in-house catering, events, seminars, workshop, etc., whatnot. But our basics of the food with which we started never changed. Our food should be happy, healthier, and beautiful. And as I said before, it's a cinema. And the cinema should not end after first bite. It should continue till the end. And even after that. And let each and every actor, whether it is side character, lead actor, child actor, director, let them do their work to your different body parts. And you just sit, relax, enjoy, and pay attention. For your health, for your prosperity, and for the better world, let the cinema begins.
Thank you, Himanshu. Excellent. Now, all of these techniques we can try out in the foyer when we get given bitterballen in about. No matter how you describe that, I have to explain. I guess I have to explain that to people who are, some of the new people here. What bitterballen is? It's an old trick of taking molten lava, rolling it in breadcrumbs, and then putting it in your mouth. Even the dragon from Game of Thrones, we go like, no, I don't want that shit. Seriously, that's it. Anyway, ladies, we're going to keep the pace high and the pleasure high. Get your hand clappers ready. Kick back and yeah, a little bit too early, but all at once or not at all. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker of this evening gets the warmest welcome, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Pamela Wiepking.
So lucky. I get to study why people do good things rather than bad things. I'm a sociologist, and typically sociologists study all the bad things people do. Delinquency, poverty, inequality. But not me. I get to study why people do good things and why they contribute to the world around them. And I love it. It's like looking through rose-colored glasses every day. However, my world isn't always that pink. There is so much suffering in our world. Sometimes I think about the kids in Syria that were born on the day my daughter Isa was born, on December 30, 2012. Isa is 4.5 years old now, and she's a happy, playful and powerful little girl. She just started school, and she loves to learn about letters, draw stickman portraits of her family, and fight with her friends for the school scooters during playground time. But how different is the story for those kids, born on the exact same day my daughter was born, but only in Syria? Did their parents have to make tough choices? Either stay in Syria or try to flee, both options associated with grave risks. Most of the kids in Syria, born the day my daughter was born, have not lived in peace for one day of their lives. And it pains me to think what could have happened if Isa was born in Angola, the country with the highest child mortality rate according to the World Bank. 157 kids out of every 1,000 kids die before they reach the age of 5. That number is only 5 in Europe. Isa will celebrate her 5th birthday happily this December 30. Suffering is not only limited to countries in war or in economic development, and not only to children. Across the world, people are suffering from deprivation on so many levels. And not only people, also animals and nature. We're vastly approaching our planetary boundaries. But that is where my rose-colored glasses come back on again. I study how and why people help those people to relieve their suffering and escape their misfortune. In other words, I study why people do good things. In my research, I see evidence that people care. They do want to contribute to a better world. In the Netherlands, where I come from, 81% of the people made a donation to charitable organizations. From my research with René Bekkers from the VU Amsterdam, we learned that there are many reasons why people make those donations. They're asked to give, they want to feel good about themselves, and they want to increase their social reputation. But that is not the whole story. There's one really big reason why people make those donations. And that is because they want to change the world in line with their own values. We all have ideas of what a better world would look like. You may feel that no one should ever die from preventable diseases, or you may feel that every child should have access to safe drinking water. And I, for example, believe that we all should have equal rights, no matter where we were born, no matter the color of your skin, and no matter your sexual orientation. And one way to create this better world is to start living our values. If we all start living our values, we will create more generous societies. Generous societies are societies where people care for each other and want to contribute to the public good rather than take from it. But maybe the solution isn't that simple. Maybe you have no idea about what your values are, or maybe you haven't considered them important before. Or maybe you hold values that would contribute to a better world according to your ideas, but which are at odds with what the majority of the population would feel as a better world to live in. Remember those people? They have very clear and strong values about what a better world would look like. But I, especially given my values, am very happy that their worldview currently only resonates with the minority of the population. So now, I want you to do something you're probably already doing. But I want you to think for a moment, what are your values? Do your values lead you to want to eradicate poverty, abolish hunger, to provide safe environments for people to live in, to safeguard human rights, to protect animals and nature, or to stop climate change? Or maybe you would want to start more simple. Maybe living your values would mean you'd be nice to the people you meet. You would truly connect to the people you encounter. Or you would help that elderly neighbor you see struggling with a wife that is ill. I'm asking you today, what is the world you want to live in? And how would living your values help to create more generous societies? So that's that. All is done. We all start living our values and we will create more generous societies. Of course, it's not that simple. Next to our individual values, there's societal conditions that make it easier or harder to create those generous societies. This figure shows the average amount that people donated to charitable organizations over the course of a year across a range of countries. And as you can see illustrated by this figure, there are large differences in the generosity of people across those nations. From my research, with over 50 scholars in 25 countries, we learned that there are many institutional and cultural factors either facilitating or limiting the creation of generous societies. And one of the most important factors is a country's culture of philanthropy. When giving is publicly celebrated, donors receive applause when they give, they receive positive press, friends and family like them, and giving is a positive experience for all involved. This stimulates the public nature of giving. When giving is done publicly, people see this as an example of what they can also do with their money, instead of buying another yacht or another private plane. When giving is publicly celebrated, donors can increase their social reputation with giving, which is a nice added bonus, in addition to making the world a better place and feeling good about that. A great example of public giving is the Giving Pledge, initiated by Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett in 2010. There are currently 170 pledges across 21 countries, but most of these pledges have been made in the United States. And that's not only because the pledge initiated there. Typically, Americans celebrate philanthropy and giving. I am giving this talk today from Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. And this country is a great example of a culture where philanthropy is often not celebrated. When people publicly give, they can get attacked by the media and given the cold shoulder by their friends and family. In some countries, including the Netherlands, there's a strict norm that you don't talk about money and you don't talk about giving. This partly has to do with our cultural and religious traditions. For some religious Orthodox people, giving should be something between them and God. While we know that individually religious people may be very generous, if we live in a society where you never see public examples of giving, and when giving is not socially rewarded, this limits the creation of generous societies. But not only cultural norms and religious traditions can limit the creation of generous societies. Also laws and regulations implemented by governments can do so. Using laws and regulations, governments can either help or hinder the creation of generous societies. Currently, we see examples across the world of governments limiting the freedom of civil society organizations trying to work towards a better world. Think, for example, about the new civil codes in Hungary, implemented by the right-wing government. Under this law, organizations trying to create a better world face great administrative and legal barriers, including funding restrictions of those organizations critical of the government. Similar trends can be observed across China, Russia, India, Uganda, Egypt, and unfortunately many more countries. Governments can thus limit the creation of generous societies, and especially non-democratic governments are more likely to do so. But governments can also be a force for good when they implement laws and regulations in such a way that it increases the quality of services and that it fosters trust in those organizations striving for a better world. People need to trust people and organizations before they're willing to make a contributions. We need trusting societies in order to create generous societies. Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. So you know what you want to do. You want to contribute to fight child poverty. And now you want to make a donation to an organization that is striving towards that cause. But you don't trust that what this organization does will matter. That is a strong inhibitor for action. Trusting people and organizations is a great quality. Trusting people are more likely to be entrepreneurial, happier, and healthier. I trust people. I think I've always been a trusting person, but especially since learning the consequences of being a truster during my sociology education. I then and there decided that is what I wanted to be. I want to be a truster. So I trust people to treat me fairly. I trust people the people that take care of my kids, and I trust my colleagues not to take advantage of me. And that is when I learned that being a truster is not always a good thing. I have been taken advantage of, other people have taken credit for my work, and I've been demeaned because I'm a woman in a male-dominated profession. But still, I am a trusting person. I just learned not to be a truster in the naive kind of way. And thank God, in society, most people can be trusted. And especially those people working at organizations striving for a better world can be trusted. I know so many people working relentlessly to create a better world. And the few that are ingenuous, you can pick out easily. But that's not to say that the work they do is always as effective as possible. And that is where we need to work with them. Ask critical questions before you volunteer for an organization or decide to donate to them. Don't be a mere donor of time and money, but ask the organization to show you that they are worthy of your trust. Engage in conversations with an organization if you don't feel they're trying to achieving its mission as effective as possible. But above all, do some research and soul searching yourself. Does this organization help me to live my values? That is the most important question, I think. But don't stop to take action because you don't trust it will matter. It will matter, and it does matter. Even the smallest contribution on your part will help to create more generous societies. Whether it's making a donation to helping children in need, volunteering for your local church, or just smiling to the strangers you encounter on a busy street. I think by now we all see the need for more generous societies. And you know, we can make this happen. The first step is to all start living our values. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. We're now going to be watching a short film.
£571,230,000 of paper towels are used by Americans every year. If we could, correction, wrong figure, 13 billion used every year. If we could reduce the usage of paper towels, one paper towel per person per day, 571,230,000 pounds of paper not used. We could do that. Now, there are all kinds of paper towel dispensers. There's the trifold. People typically take 2 or 3. There's the one that cuts it that you have to tear off. People go 1, 2, 3, 4, tear. This much, right? There's the one that cuts itself. People go 1, 2, 3, 4. Or there's the same thing, but recycled paper. You have to get 5 of those because they're not as absorbent, of course. The fact is, you can do it all with one towel. The key, 2 words. This half of the room, your word is shake. Let's hear it. Shake. Louder. Shake. Your word is fold. Fold. Again. Fold. Really loud. Shake. Fold. Okay. Wet hands. Shake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Why 12? 12 apostles, 12 tribes, 12 zodiac signs, 12 months. What I like the best, it's the biggest number with 1 syllable. Trifold. Fold. Dry. Cuts itself. Fold. The fold is important because it allows interstitial suspension. You don't have to remember that part, but trust me. Cuts itself. You know, the funny thing is, I get my hands drier than people do with 3 or 4 because they can't get in between the cracks. If you think this isn't as good, now, there's now a real fancy invention. It's the one where you wave your hand and it kicks it out. It's way too big a towel. Let me tell you a secret. If you're really quick, and I can prove this, this is half a towel from the dispenser in this building. How? As soon as it starts, you just tear it off. And it's smart enough to stop, and you get half a towel. Now let's all say it together. Shake, fold. You will, for the rest of your life, remember those words every time you pick up a paper towel. And remember, 1 towel per person for 1 year, 571,230,000 pounds of paper. No small thing. And next year, toilet paper.
Great. That's what I love about these TED Talks. He takes 5 pieces of paper to show us how to use 1. That's great. I was inspired by that, and also by the last talk, where I love this idea of the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing, which reminds me, I'm a left-hander, and I grew up with this small exercise, and I want to do it with you all. So I want you all, I'll have to put the microphone here and shout a little bit, but I want everybody to take their hands like this, throw them together. Take them apart and put them together like that. Thumbs crossed. Now look down. How many people's got the left thumb on top? Yeah? About 3/4. So people with the left thumb on top, you're more intellectual, you're more likely to achieve your goals. People with the right thumb on top, you're better in bed. So now we're going to chant that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on. Please, again, a loving round of applause. We're coming up to our last couple of speakers, so keep the energy high. Every single subject today has been wonderful, so let's keep that momentum. And please welcome on stage Maaike Vernooy.
I have good news and bad news. And to get it over with, let's start with the bad news. Every one of you will have, during your lifetime, a 1 in 4 risk of getting dementia. 1 in 4. And it's even worse for women. Our risk is a stunning 1 in 3, whereas for men it's only 1 in 5. Not fair, ladies, but being the tougher cookie and living longer comes at a price. Dementia, the most dreaded disease of old age. A disease in which persons transform in their personality, become detached from their environment, completely dependent on their caregivers. A disease not only with a high emotional burden, but also with a high price for society. It is the disease with the highest associated healthcare costs. Costs that are increasing due to the tsunami of dementia that is coming our way, caused by aging populations worldwide. What is disheartening is that despite decades of research, we still don't know what causes dementia. We don't understand why one person becomes demented at the age of 80 and 2 or 3 others do not. Not knowing this what and why is not only very frustrating, it's also disastrous for our ability to find a cure for the disease, or maybe a way to stop progression, or even a way to prevent it. As a medical doctor and neuroscientist, I'm trying very hard to change that. I promise you some good news as well. As I speak, literally thousands and thousands of researchers, like myself, are trying to tackle this problem from different angles. Some may study lifestyle and genetic factors, others use mind games to train the brain, or will use experimental drugs to try to lower the load of toxic proteins in the brain. Yet, virtually all of these approaches fail to directly look at the victim of the disease itself, the brain. What if we could directly look into the brain while dementia is developing to better understand the disease? What if we could unravel the wiring of the brain to understand the cause of dementia and perhaps even predict it? Those are the intriguing questions that me and my team at my hospital work on and that I want to share with you today. But first, let me share with you a story of how I became passionate about this. When I was a small girl, or maybe I should say young girl, I had a life goal, and one that I thought was pretty modest at the time. I wanted to become a detective. I was an avid reader, and I devoured books, especially Agatha Christie whodunits. And being a small feminist, Miss Marple was my favorite character, and I wanted nothing more in the world than be as smart as she was in gathering information, putting together clues, and trying to solve the crime. But with the years going by and growing up, I started to realize that this was probably not a very realistic or conventional job choice, so I decided to become a medical doctor. And within the field of medical professions, I went on to become a radiologist, because in my opinion, that was as close as possible to being a medical detective. As a radiologist, I read CAT scans and MRI scans, and like a detective, I search on those for signs and clues of disease to make a diagnosis. And these are images like this, black and white, or actually not black and white, but various shades of grey. Not 50 shades of grey, but actually 256 shades of grey. In my early career as a radiologist, I tended to believe that these images were the absolute truth. Everything we needed to know about the disease was right there. We just had to look at it properly. I quickly found out how wrong I was in that respect. The first realization was that I found out that there was no such thing as just looking at it properly. I found out that our human brain is completely fallible in picking up every clue that is present in the image. One reason is that we are not as objective as we think we are. And that is because we are suffering from issues that we call cognitive biases. Let me show you an example of that and show you your own cognitive bias. If I show you this figure with these three symbols and I would ask you to read aloud, let's say the middle of these three symbols, pretty sure the majority of you will tell me that's the letter B. Well, there's your cognitive bias, because I'm showing you the second image and there you clearly see that the same symbol is the number 13. See what happened there? Because of the context in which I presented that symbol to you, with the letter A and the letter C right next to it, your mind fooled you in misinterpreting it and thinking it had to be a letter as well. This is an example of a cognitive bias that I suffer from in my work as a radiologist as well. I am a neuroradiologist, which means I'm specialized in reading brain scans. So neurologists will send patients to me for a brain scan, and they will tell me their symptoms and also what kind of question they have. So for example, a neurologist may ask me, does my patient have a stroke? I open the brain scan, and immediately my brain will be tuned to finding signs and clues in this scan of finding a stroke. But it will also automatically bias me towards maybe missing certain signs that are there, or maybe misinterpreting other signs. All because my brain frantically wants to fit everything into this box that I had already labeled stroke. That's an example of a cognitive bias that I try to avoid by always reading a brain scan twice. Once without looking at any of the symptoms and not at the question that the neurologist is asking me, and once after looking at those information. But this is just one of the over 50 cognitive biases that we radiologists suffer from. So we have these cognitive biases, but on top of that we are dealing with those 256 shades of grey. Do you really believe we can distinguish all of the shades of grey? No way. Depending on how expensive your computer screen is and the light conditions, we're happy if we get stuck at about 30 shades of grey. In other words, there's much more information in an image than our eyes can capture. So it's our challenge to try to uncover that information. And that is exactly what sparked my interest into diving into brain imaging research deeper and trying to use technology and advanced techniques in unraveling the origin of brain disease. So my team and I went back to that question, what causes dementia? And we decided to give it a go. And we said, let's go for the true detective work and look at the victim itself, look at the brain itself. And we use brain scans for that. We actually do that in a pretty unique way. We make scans in thousands and thousands of people of middle and elderly age who don't have dementia at the time of their scan, but we follow them for years and years until some of them become demented. 1 in 4, as you know. And then we use technology to extract information from their brain scans that we cannot see with our eyes. The part of the brain that I study is what we call the wiring. It is the part that transfers information from one part of the brain to another. And this image is actually illustrating what we believe those wires look like. But if we look at the brain scan, all we see is this gray zone. And here I'm showing you in white the region where we believe those wires are, but we can't actually see them on the scan. I'm taking this illustration away now because I want to show you what we can see on the scan. And that is, we can see small disconnections in these wires, and they pop up as little white spots in the brain. Do you see them on the image on the right? And I'll help you a bit, and I'll coloring them green. These are brain wiring disconnections, which is a big word even for neuroscientists, so we call them lesions. What we found out early on in our research of these thousands of people is that these lesions cause your brain to slow down. And they also increase your risk of dementia. So there we are. We have pathology that is directly related to developing dementia. But we had 2 big issues that we couldn't answer. The first was, if we had 2 persons with exactly the same amount of lesions on their scans, they didn't have the same risk of developing dementia. How come? The second issue was that we found out that these lesions don't disappear from your brain. Once they're there, they stay there, and you only see them building up further in life. In other words, if we want to prevent dementia, we need to start earlier and try to prevent these lesions. And in order to do so, we need to understand why these lesions develop, and we need to try to predict them. We set about to try to answer that second issue first. And we made use of the amazing fact that we're following our thousands and thousands of subjects over time, so we have multiple scans in them, so we actually can go back in time to an earlier scan to see what actually happened. Let's do that for the person in this image with the lesions, and take a scan of 3 years ago. You don't have to be a neuroradiologist to see that this person had fewer lesions 3 years ago. And if you do need some help, I'm drawing a couple of figures to show you where lesions were not visible on the scan 3 years before, but developed over time. What if we could have predicted in which brain regions these lesions would occur? What if we could have predicted how many lesions would occur? That would have told us a lot about the health of this person. Actually, there has to be some information on that scan 3 years ago that we cannot see with our eyes, but is telling us something about the developing brain disease. That is where technology is helping us. We are using an MRI technology that gives us information that we cannot see on that scan 3 years before. And for that, let's first go to Biology 101. You probably all remember that your body is made up for a large part of water. Our brain is too. Our brain is full of water molecules. And they don't just sit there motionless, but they actually move around all the time. And usually that motion is sort of a random process. If we take one single water molecule and we follow it over time, it makes a very, very small motion. We can't see it, it's microscopic, but it is random. So if we would wait a while, it would take a course which would be some sort of a ball shape. Unless in the brain it would hit those wires. Here you see what happens. The wires make it deviate from its course and start to move alongside the wires, leading to not a ball shape, but more of a cigar shape or oval shape course of motion. We can measure it with MRI. We can measure how much the water molecules are moving and in which direction they're moving. But we can also measure what happens when there are small lesions in the brain. And you directly see here what happens. The water molecules tend to move outside of the wires, directly affecting their course of direction. So it isn't oval shape anymore, but it becomes another shape. So what we did is we used this technique on those brain regions that looked completely normal 3 years ago. And what we saw is that when we measured the motion of water molecules, it was already abnormal 3 years ago. In other words, we could have predicted the development of lesions. Think about it. It's like a detective predicting a crime. That's pretty cool. But it becomes cooler. Remember how I told you that we didn't understand why two persons with the same amount of lesions in their brain didn't have the same risk of dementia? To understand it, we need to know where those lesions occur in the brain and which wires they're actually affecting. For that, we have to look at the wires. But there's the problem. The wires in the brain is essentially a concept. Unless you would cut open the brain and dissect the wires, nobody had ever seen those wires in a living brain. Until this water diffusion technique came around. Because if we can measure in what direction the water molecules are moving, we can deduce from that how the wires are running, because they move along the wires. That is exactly what we can do using computer technology. We can virtually dissect those wires, and I'm showing that to you here. Here you see the outer surface of the brain, and with computer technology we can peel away those layers until we get to the wires. Remember, we had those thousands of scans in persons who were non-demented. We can virtually dissect the wires, then follow who becomes demented and who doesn't, and compare that to see what goes wrong in the wires. And when we look at what goes wrong in the wires, we see, and here you see the same wires, but now in color, that it's especially the purple wires that are important in developing dementia. So damage in these wires puts you at a higher risk of getting dementia. So now we know part of the explanation why two persons with the same amount of lesions don't have the same risk of dementia. It is in the wires. See where we're going from there? If we understand what damage in these wires is important, we can then look at which factors are driving that and try to prevent it. And we already found a few, and those are, to talk about criminal terms, the usual suspects. Hypertension, smoking, diabetes. But there are likely many more, including genetic factors. So one thing is sure, me and my team will for the next years be unraveling these wires. Back to my job as a neuroradiologist, the one with the fallible brain and the cognitive bias. How will technology like this affect my daily job? For that, I want to show you one of my favorite quotes, which reads, "If the human brain were so simple that we could understand it, we would be so simple that we couldn't." See the catch-22 in that? If we want to understand the most magnificent and complex organ that we have in our body, our brain, we are going to need some help. And that help is in technology. We are moving towards a future in which technology like the one I just described you will be at my side when I'm reading a brain scan. And it will help me not only to avoid my cognitive bias or to make a better diagnosis, but ultimately also to help me detect disease in an earlier stage, so we can still slow it down, or maybe even prevent it in some people. So that not 1 in 4 of us will get dementia, but maybe 1 in 5, or perhaps even only 1 in 6. That is how technology makes me a better brain detective. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we have come to the penultimate, we've come to the last. And as the papers are being rolled out, I want you to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you've got all your attention, you've got all your love and all your wisdom, and we're going to give the resounding applause. We're going to give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Starting right from the back, building it up the front, lots of energy for the last week. It's never easy being the last, but it's always, as we always say in this business, we save the best to last, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause for our last speaker of today, Pauline Janssen.
are the fundament, the cornerstone of our society, because they raise the next generation. By defining the rules in a household and by being the core examples for their children. So I'm a researcher on parenting practices, and I'm a parent too. So I know all about the worries, the questions, and the feelings of guilt that parents may have. Did I handle this tantrum okay? Should I set more rules? Should I be more involved, or is it better to just let go a bit? We have these questions and worries about many domains of child development. We have them about school achievements, about interactions with peers, sports, manners, about how much children watch television, what video games they play, about sleep, and of course about eating. So what do we as parents do when we worry or we have questions? We ask for advice from our own parents or our friends, or we look in handbooks or at the internet. And luckily, there are hundreds of handbooks and websites on parenting practices available. But today I will tell you that some of the advice that is given in these handbooks may actually be wrong. So I'm a psychologist and I study eating behaviors of children. So I'm interested in how we can help children to develop healthy eating habits. And I'm interested in how we can help parents to achieve this. So there are two very common problems with children sitting at the kitchen table. They eat too much or they eat too little. And both drive parents nuts. So to start with the first, eating too much. We all know that obesity is a worldwide problem. It's an epidemic. And this epidemic often starts already in childhood. And this makes parents the gateway to solving, or at least reducing, the obesity rates. And with my research, I want to offer parents the tools to solve this problem in the best way possible. So what do we as adults do when we want to lose weight or prevent weight gain? Exactly, we cut foods out of our diet. No more sugars, no more snacks, no more fast food, no more soft drinks. And that is what parents will do to their children too. But just Google it. And many, many websites will tell you that strict control and the banning of foods is dangerous. So buying no cookies anymore and putting chocolate on the top shelf will backfire. Parents are warned. Because the banning of this food will lead to a desire, which will result in overeating when these foods are freely available, and that eventually leads to weight gain and overweight. So wait a minute, parents are warned that the banning of foods will result in obesity, which is actually the one thing that they're trying to prevent. This doesn't make sense. It contradicts logic, it contradicts intuition, and unintentionally it leads to feelings of guilt among parents. So these guidelines are based on some experimental studies. And these are really great studies, very well designed experiments. But that is also the problem with these studies, because findings have not been replicated outside the lab, in real life. And work from my own research group has actually led to different conclusions. So using a different design, an observational design, in which we follow families over time, we found that parents aren't actually causing the overeating. No, they're doing their best to prevent it, to control it, because they worry about their child's weight. So parents, relax and don't worry. There does not seem so much harm in putting the chocolate on the top shelf. Okay, now let's move on to that other problem at the kitchen table. Children who are difficult, picky eaters. You know, those children who don't want to eat their broccoli or beans or fish, or who all of a sudden claim, "I hate milk!" Yes, you probably know one or two of those children, or you were one like this yourself. And that's not so strange that you know this behavior, because it's really common. About 50% goes through a phase of picky eating at some point. And in most children, the vegetable hatred disappears over time. Although in some, it may last a bit longer. In most children, this difficult behavior is not really a health problem per se, but it does drive parents nuts. Because parents don't want their child to be hungry or undernourished, so they try to persuade their child to eat a little bit more. Come on, one more bite, please. Or, okay, so this is your plate. Well, then at least finish this part of it. Again, this is very logical parenting behavior. But the handbooks advise against it. Pressuring a child too much will have negative consequences. That's what the handbooks say. Because children will start to hate the forced foods and eventually eat less. Again, this idea is based on experimental studies conducted in the lab. But observational work from others and also from my own group has led to different conclusions. That pushing a child to eat something is not really causing picky eating. It's much more the other way around. It's parents who try to help their child and solve the problem. So my advice is, parents, don't worry. If you try to persuade your child to eat the broccoli when he or she is being a picky eater. And parents, don't worry or don't feel guilty when you try to limit the food intake of your child when he or she is becoming a bit heavy. It seems that this intuitive parenting behavior is actually not so bad after all. It is much more people like me who need to do more, because we cannot just base guidelines on one type of study. So we need to do more, and we need to look at the problem from different angles. So we should do more research. And yes, we should do experimental studies, but also observational studies in real life and interviews. And we should do intervention studies to test if what we put in these handbooks is really helping. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end. A little awe would have been nice at that point. Oh, that's great. But fantastic. Did you guys enjoy yourself? That's what we need to hear. Fantastic. We have learned a lot, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon. It's fantastic. And what a lot of people put this together, and I've got a list of people that I have to thank. I'm not going to make it a huge applause marathon, but I think one set of applause really needs to go out for all the hard-working people scurrying around backstage. And that's the Erasmus Student Association, and it says here the RSM MBA Students and Office. Give me a huge round of applause. They're over there somewhere. Lovely. I have no idea what RSM stands for. I'll just call it Random Sociology Major. That's probably half the people here, so... And, of course, a huge round of applause for all the speakers that are lounging back in the front row. There they all are. What happens now? And, of course, what happens now? It's another wonderful TEDx organized event here. We all go out to the foyer and we absolutely pester them with all sorts of wonderful questions and answers and networking, all that sort of stuff. Make it a really rich event also in the foyer. Listen, I don't know if you guys have to come up for the video to take a bow or something. It's all, okay, fine. There's all sorts of wonderful things happening there. Jonathan, give them, ladies and gentlemen, the last round of applause goes to Jonathan from TEDx. There he is. Jonathan, who was the man you saw invisibly floating over the stage like one of our tea lights, ladies and gentlemen. And disguised as a young Steve Jobs, he would slide across the stage and... Thanks very much. My name is Bob McLaren. We'll see you all in the foyer. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much. Go.